Good evening, St. Lucia, and welcome to a very special episode of Journalist. I am your host, Janika Simon, and as you can see with me, if you were watching earlier, you were watching the address to the nation by the leader of the opposition, Mr. Philip J. Pierre, and he is actually live here in studio with me tonight to continue the conversation about the St. Lucia Labour Party's policies, and of course we will be talking quite extensively about the upcoming march on Sunday. Why are the Labour Party? Why is the Labour Party marching? What are the issues that they have with the current administration? Although I must say, sir, your team has been doing a remarkable job in public relations and communication over the past couple of weeks leading up to the march. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And for people who were watching the National Trust live stream on their Facebook page, don't be confused. I was actually hosting that live. I did run right up to the studio when I ran out of time. In fact, my guest beat me to the studio this evening. He was quite early, and I quickly, did a wardrobe change, and I'm back to host Mr. Pierre for this evening's discussion. So we're going to get straight into it. We're a little bit behind time. Your address ate up a little bit of my hour, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to address the nation about why you think this march is so important this evening. But I want to kind of draw a little line through my earlier activity and right now. So I'm going to start by asking you about the party's current opinion on the Dolphin Discovery Project, the Captive Dolphin Project. Now, I know that the initial conversation between Dolphin Discovery happened with the previous Labour Party administration, and there was a memorandum of understanding, is it, signed between the previous administration and the Dolphin people to explore options about having a dolphin project at Sept, I believe it was. Can you tell me a little bit about how that came about? How did they approach you? And why did the government at the time agree to explore those options?
Well, thank you very much, Janika, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I've not been on the journalist for a while. I hope I can handle you. Because I understand you're a pretty tough
Sir, no, that
interviewer.
is not correct at all.
I want to say good night to all the viewers of choice, and thanks for watching. You were right. There was discussion when we were in government about the Dolphin Park, but I wanted to make it clear from the onset that the government of the Labour Party never contemplated any Dolphin Park on Pigeon Point. Never. Not on Pigeon Point, not near Pigeon Point. No, there was never any thought or suggestion or idea of putting a Dolphin Park in the Grosley area.
So that never came up at all in your discussions? Okay.
Good. What came up was discussion on a Dolphin Park and Sept of Canaries. And this is what the party said. The party, or the government at the time, because the government and the party are two separate things, the government said that we would explore all the options, let the investor explore all the options, and come back with a solution or some suggestion or something. Approval had not been given. And also there were problems with the land. There were a lot of problems with the land area. I think it was owned by somebody who was dead. So we were nowhere near getting a Dolphin Park in St. Lucia. It wasn't near. But I can assure you, never in Pigeon Point. That would be sacrilegious to go to Pigeon Point. Now,
can you tell me, I of course have no insight into how government operates, but how often are administrations approached with ideas from investors? And
well, I'll tell you what. and I don't know if you remember, when the new government came into power, I warned them that, every day people come in for ideas. Every day. If you repeat them, and we had a principle when we were in government, we never disclosed or we never announce anything unless we are reasonably sure that that is what happened. Because every day someone comes with a project, some scheme to do something every day. If it's not a Dolphin Park, it's something.
Okay.
And if you're not careful, you get sucked away and you make pronouncements that will never happen. But the issue at hand with the Dolphin Park is that if you were in government now, I don't think, and I can tell you clearly, a Labour Party government that I lead will not allow any Dolphin Parks in St. Lucia.
And why
Because
is that
we've realized that the change in how people are thinking, how the world is looking at dolphins, how what the environmentalists are saying, and the Labour Party that I lead will not allow any Dolphin Park in St. Lucia,
Okay.
in any location.
So I want to ask you, just on a wider level, about the National Trust. As you know, after their opposition to the Dolphin Park project, in the next budget, the National Trust subvention from central government was zeroed out. What does the Labour Party think about the National Trust as an entity? What is the Labour Party planning to do should they be returned to power about that subvention? I must say, as a citizen, I am a member of the National Trust, and you are as well. So then I would imagine that...
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
When you get into government, we will restore the subvention immediately. Immediately. It's going to be something that will happen in probably the first pronouncement made by the new Prime Minister. Okay. Immediately.
So not even waiting for another budget cycle, you're going to... Okay. And why do you think it's so important?
I'll tell you what. Government needs checks and balances. Because when you're in the thrust of government or in the cut and thrust of politics, you get carried away, right? Now you need someone, or you need some level-headed people who are not directly political or partisan, for that matter, to tell you, listen, let us relook at that situation. And National Trust fills that void. You need some organization that will tell you, look at the bigger picture. Because when you're in government, you want to do things. You want to create employment. You want to make people happy. But sometimes you may have missteps. And in the system that we have, as you see is happening now, the Prime Minister literally does whatever he wants. So you need some organization, somebody to tell you, listen, this is wrong. This is have effects on your society and on the environment, and I think you should stop it. And the National Trust fills that void. I think it's a useful body to have, and the Labour Party will restore its subvention immediately.
Okay. Now, on the general topic of tourism, you were a former minister of tourism. Under Labour Party administrations, we've had several large foreign direct investment projects. Do you look back now and say that that you're happy with all of those projects, that you are pleased with the amount of foreign direct investment that the Labour Party was able to attract, that the projects that the Labour Party government was able to attract have been beneficial to the economy, to labour relations, to the social fabric of the country? Are there some things that you look back at and say, you know what, this probably was not a great idea and we made a mistake on that?
Okay, I'll tell you what. When you came to government in 1997, there was a famous phrase used that said the economy was in transition. I just want to give you a little historical. Because before that, the economy depended on bananas. We exported bananas to England, and we got $3 million per week, literally for doing anything. When the terms of trade changed with the WTO, and bananas got, all our preferential treatment stopped, etc., which is history. We found an economy in 1997 where that influx of money was no longer there. So we had to take the economy from that stage, from basically an agro-based economy to a service-based economy, and it went into tourism. Tourism was already there. There was a minister called Romanus Lancigo who tried, but it was not the main foreign exchange earner.
Right.
The main foreign exchange earner was bananas.
Green gold.
Green gold. And so we did that. So when you got into government, we found that we had to transition that economy from basically a rural-based economy to a service-oriented economy. And to do that, we thought that we'd use tourism or expand tourism. Right? The first thing we did is that I tried to cause discussion on a philosophical underpinning for tourism, which said that the benefits of tourism must accrue to as many people as possible. What did I do? What did we do? What did I do? What did the government do? First of all, we did a very symbolic thing. I don't know if you probably old enough for that. or would I say young enough for that? There was the Vendors Arcade, which was there, just built by George Michael and Roman Atlantic. It wasn't a mess. It was there. And there were, and the cruise ships came alongside the Vendors Arcade.
Yes, I do remember that.
Good. And there was a gate. So the cruise passengers, when they came off the boat, all these security concerns were not there as yet. All these security concerns, the world changed after 9/11. These security concerns weren't there. So the cruise passengers, when they came off the boat, they had to go outside on Jeremy Street and go where they had to go.
Yes.
And the Venice Arcade is next to them. And they couldn't go in the Venice Arcade. My first act, which I got some criticism for, was to cause that gate to be opened.
That's
So,
a gate between the Vendors Arcade and the rest of the wharf. Yeah.
Cause that gate to be open so people could come from the cruise ship and go into the Venice Arcade. That was symbolic in that I was trying to get across to the people and to the tourists. And listen to me, you must try and spend some money in the country, and trying to stop the alienation between the vendors and the tourists. That was a very small but symbolic act, because I was trying to build the philosophical underpinning to tourism. Second thing we did is that we tried to organize the service providers, the taxi drivers. We trained them, and if you notice, we introduced something called the TX plates.
Yes.
And for the first time, taxi drivers got incentives to buy their vehicles. They got duty-free incentives. That never happened before. Incentives were only for hotels. The taxi drivers got incentives. And then we trained them, and we caused them to get involved in a business kind of thing. So they had their TX places, their TX plates, etc. Then we introduced the hostesses program, where again, to get people involved, we trained about 25 young ladies in castries. Incidentally, as soon as the present Prime Minister became Prime Minister, he dismissed all the hostesses in Soufrière. Dismissed them promptly as soon as he became Prime Minister. We trained them, and then they served as hostesses to tourists. So they would tell them, hello, where do you want to go? Do you want a taxi? Do you want to go to see the cathedral, etc.? Do you want to go? And then we did that. They would call them tourism hostesses. And adding to that, we introduced the tourism rangers. And the thinking was that these people would become what is called a tourism police, which would be a law enforcement officer, but trained in the business of tourism.
Okay.
So we had these three things that we did: to get people involved, and to give them a relationship with the industry, in that we thought that the benefits of the industry would have to accrue to them. So we tried to get them trained, we tried to get them organized, and we tried to get some benefits from it. The other thing we did is that we opened up the Mon Lay-by. The Mon Lay-by, where again, to allow vendors to get something from the industry, to allow that to happen, we opened up the Mon Lay-by. So it was so the vendors put their trays with their stuff, and then the tourists came to buy, and they had a view of castries. You may not also know that the lay-bys in Dennery were also done by us. Again, to get tourists involved in the society. Now, I'm saying all that to come to the subject of direct foreign investment. There was a time when most of the main hotels in St. Lucia were owned by St. Lucians. There was Bay Gardens.
Right.
There was Craig Bernard,
Okay, that's
the Spore.
Rendezvous
The
and the
Spore,
Spore, yes.
that's coming out. Chasney, Michael Chasney came in after, but there was Michael Chasney there with Coco Palm.
Coco Palm and Coco Creole.
Then there was, these were the three main ones. In fact, before that, it was owned, Coco Palm was owned by a solution called Saint Jou. A guy called Saint Jou owned that Coco Palm Hotel. Then there was one Sanders, and then so these main hotels were owned by St. Lucian's, apart from Sanders. Sanders is a CARICOM company. In our time.
The hotels in Soufrière are not owned by St. Lucian's.
Yes, and Chasney is basically, well, that person not born in St. Lucia, but it's basically considered St. Lucian. Ladera was not owned by St. Lucian's, no, it wasn't owned by St. Lucian's.
Coconut Bay, which was
Halcyon.
No, Coconut Bay in Vieux Fort.
It was a Halcyon hotel.
Oh, it was okay.
Yeah, but so we found, so in our time, in my 6 years as Minister of Tourism, I had 2 years when Minister.
So you're saying there was a more equitable mix of ownership.
We caused 4 or 5 new hotels in that time. During that time, the greatest number of hotels were built in St. Lucia in one period. That was in my time.
But were those hotels locally owned?
Yes, there was Club, there was Big Ange Resort, there was the Michael Chastain Hotel, the other one,
Coco Palm.
Coco Palm.
Yes.
Then there was Capella. Capella was at Marigot. That came under our term. Wyndham changed hands. Wyndham was there before. That's 3. And come on, that's 3. And there were 2 more hotels that got built in St. Lucia during this 6-year period between 1997 and 2002, 2003.
Okay,
right?
understood.
So we did a great level of our investment. But we're coming to the point now where we have to relook at whether the country can continue with these massive hotel plans. The time has come for serious introspection as to whether we can do that or whether we should do that. Whether we ought not to go into the small boutique type hotel. We have to look at that. Because what's happening now, and I know you come to the question of one person owning all the hotels in the country. Now, you see, we live in a free enterprise system.
So let me just interrupt you there, because I know that this is something that I want to spend a little bit of time on. I'm due for a break right now, so just hold that thought. Let us take a break, and then we come back to look at, just what that kind of landscape could look like if we have, one company owning a lot of tourism properties in an economy that is so dependent on the tourism industry. Stay with us. I know there's a lot going on tonight, but journalists will be back after these short messages. And welcome back. Of course, my guest tonight is Mr. Philip J. Pierre, the political leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party and Member of Parliament for Castries East. Now, I'm always mixing up the Castries. There are so many Castries constituencies, so I'm glad I got it right. East, yeah. Castries East. We were talking about the tourism industry, and you preempted my question by starting to talk about the concept of one company, owning several properties, several hotel plants on the island. This is a very small country, although sometimes we don't feel that way when we live here. It is a very small and very, what I call, highly networked country and economy. So in terms of the ownership of tourism properties, of hotels on the island, what are your thoughts on, somebody going from 1 property to 3 properties to 6 projects maybe in the next couple of years, and the impact, the potential impact that could have on labor relations, on the economy in general?
But you see, first of all, we live in a free enterprise system. Now, that has its advantages,
sure,
and its disadvantages. So really, you cannot legislate to tell somebody that you can't open a hotel, right?
Sure.
But government has different tools they can use, like you can use your incentive regime, you can use your work permit policy, you can use all these things to regulate the number of firms that are in one space. There's something called monopoly legislation, right? It's legislation that says, listen to me, too many people, you cannot, one person can't control a large part of the market that's available. But the question of Sanders is a pretty ticklish question, because Sanders is a CARICOM investor. Sanders is a Jamaican company,
Yeah.
basically. So it's a ticklish question. What must happen is the government must be firm and ensure that the rules and regulations of the country are followed, and they can use the incentive regime to either limit or control the incentives that they give to investors. I think that's what you can do. But you can ensure that their work permit policies, their worker policies, the way they treat their workers, and most importantly, the linkages that they create with the rest of the economy. The government can say, listen to me, we will not allow you to do something to the X and Y. You must do it locally.
Okay.
So they can increase the linkages that are created. The government can say, listen to me, we will not allow you to import vehicles. You must buy them locally.
Buy them locally,
Right.
buy food locally,
Right.
buy furniture locally.
Exactly. The government
Okay.
can put that into an incentive package. So, you do not want to be confrontational. You sit and you speak, you talk. And once there is transparency and accountability, and you can see why you've done it, and you can explain to the public and to the investor, because no investor wants to be in an environment where the people are hostile towards it. No investor. It's not good for investment. It's not good for the country, neither for the investor. So what you need is transparency. So a government of the Labour Party would, when we are given incentive packages, would not do it in secret. Would come to Parliament and say, listen to me, these are the incentive packages that we're given X hotel, and let the parliamentarians debate it and let it happen. There's going to be a lot more transparency when we get into government when it comes to incentives, particular incentives for large hotels.
Now, segueing from the question of just hotels into the activities of hotels and the activities of the guests of hotels, we have seen tension over beaches on the island. We have looked at the beach along the causeway. We have looked at, just generally the mindset of certain hotels in wanting to create an atmosphere of separation between their guests and residents or locals on the island. Do you think that it is time to look at Queen's Chain legislation? Do you think it's time to start discouraging construction of touristic properties close to or on our beachfronts, especially now when we're looking at climate change mitigation and adaptation? I mean, what is the Labour Party policy on beaches and the use of beaches, and reining in hoteliers that might be over enthusiastic about separating?
First of all, our policy is that beaches must always remain public. St. Lucia cannot have private beaches. We don't have enough beaches to be private. We don't have enough. We're not like Antigua, Churn and 65. Secondly, most hotels want to...
Let me just stop you there, because you can say that beaches must be public, but then in practice, certain hotels can do things to, yes, it's a public beach, you can use it if you can get there.
And that's where government policy.
Yes, so what would the policy prescription look like?
Public access to beaches. And then in our government, we ensured that there was at least a public access, or I think 20 feet for people to be able to go to the beach. We ensured that happened when we were in government. But the point I was making to you is most beaches, most hotels want to be on the beach. Now the question is, do they really have to be on the shoreline? You spoke about climate change. You spoke about surges of current, etc. So again, it's a mindset. But you know, and that is why people like the National Trust are important, because you have to go into discussion. You have to ask yourself, why can't a hotel be built a few yards or away from the beach, right? So you have a larger expanse of beach, both for the tourists and for the locals. What's happening is that we squeezed down, we squeezed. So you see the hotel wants to go on the Queen's Chain. You follow? And once you're on the Queen's Chain is only 22 yards. So what the owners of the hotel say, listen to me, you can't come more than 22 yards near my hotel. And that is where you need planning, that's where you need discussion, and that's where organizations like the National Trust and the architects, etc., come into play. You see, what we'll do as a government, we'll bring everybody to the table. Because even though you've won an election, that doesn't mean you know everything. Our problems now is that people believe because they've won an election, they've become engineers, they've become doctors, they've become scientists, just because they won an election. That cannot be right. We believe that you've won an election and the people have put you in power to govern the country and to improve the quality of life. But with that, you cannot do it away from the people. You have to discuss with the people. So a Labour Party government would go to the people, go to the NGOs. We believe strongly in the role of NGOs. Because you see, NGOs, each NGO or each non-governmental organization or each association like the SLMND, National Trust, they have their own interests to protect. So you have an amalgamation of these interests and you come to something that's good. So we believe that there is need for more consultation. Like, why must a hotel be built on the beachfront?
Would you consider doing something legislatively to ensure that the rights of local St. Lucians are strengthened in terms of beach access? Would you consider doing something legislatively to strengthen the power of the Development Control Authority, for example, to insulate them from potential political interference? We have seen projects go on without DCA approval, or you know, we've seen major projects happen you know, in contravention of certain DCA rules, and people feel sometimes that when you have money behind a project, when you have big money behind a project, you get political interference in the DCA. So what about legislative solutions? I mean, it's all well and good to say that we will welcome people to the table and we will have discourse and we'll have dialogue, but if you have loopholes in legislation, or if you do not have legislation or something enshrined in the law to build in those protections, then you can have somebody who wants to exert political influence, you know, just subverting the whole process. So that's what
I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing, but that is why I'm saying to you that consultation will lead to legislation.
Okay.
You see, because you know, I really believe, Ms. Simon, that the people always want best for the country. I don't share the belief that once the people want the country to be bad and that's why in opposition we always say to the government, listen to me, we're going to support you on a few things. We're going to support you on de-risking, because we think de-risking affects the whole country. If you can't exchange money, if you can't use it. We also said the government will support you on air transport and will support you on crime. He said so. So I don't believe that once the people want bad for the country. Now I'm talking about legislation. So you want to legislate to the country that, listen to me, no structures can be on the beachfront, something like that, right? There must be a few yards, or be a few miles or something. So you have now to bring everybody to the table. The tourism interests, the climate people, the National Trust, the architects, the engineers, and you create that environment for discussion, and then the Attorney General puts a law together. But I think there is need for more strict legislation as relates to buildings in general.
Okay. So the construction
the entire
process.
Construction process would supposed to be strengthened. And the DCA, once these laws have been agreed to, then the DCA should have autonomy. But you have to agree onto a framework. So once the laws have been passed, then Because I really believe that politicians should be protected from themselves.
Could you just repeat that again? Because I think many of my viewers would agree with that statement.
But, you know, I tell you something. Politicians are not, most of us, are not what people think we are, you know. People think that you get up in the morning and say, listen to me, you're going to be able to, you're going to go out this morning, you're going to do evil. You don't, you're not. Most of us, most politicians. What happens to politicians is that sometimes in the enthusiasm and in the sometimes some of them have bad intentions. Of course, there are bad people in all walks of life. They want to do things in a shortcut manner. And to control them, there's got to be, you have got to have strong laws and strong regulations so the politician knows when he breaks that law, nothing will save him. And that's why I believe in a very strong judiciary. I think part of what I'm thinking of is that an allocation to the courts should be part of the constitution or of the national budget. Like the Prime Minister would say, we are going to allocate 2%, 1%, whatever percent to justice, to court reform. Because you need to have serious separation of powers, and the court needs to be insulated against political interference. The people must be able to get redress somewhere. That can only be in the courts. You cannot leave it to politicians. And that's what happens now. Politicians believe that they can do whatever they want because they're in power. You must be able to protect them against themselves. And you only can protect them against themselves if you have strong laws and strong regulations and legislation. And that must happen through consensus. And that comes to the, I know I've been criticized heavily for talking about the salaries of politicians. I wouldn't go there now. but the point I'm making, you need to have checks and balances on politicians. The Integrity Commission, we have to strengthen it. We have to give it teeth. The Integrity Commission now, I'll tell you something, as we speak, I know ministers in the government now who their returns was rejected by Integrity Commission. And they've done nothing about it.
I mean, it's what you're saying sounds logical. What you're saying sounds reasonable. I know that my viewers want to hear this, but the question would remain that, listen, your party was in office for 5 years before this administration,
and 5 years,
and has been in office prior to that, and we have not had any sort of legislation to do the things that you're talking about, to strengthen the Integrity Commission.
We have. It's not, we could have done more, and we will do more. But we're the ones who introduced the Integrity Commission. It was in the Constitution, but the Integrity Commission was given a more, okay, let me give an example. The Public Service Commission. That is there so it can be an impartial body.
Who appoints the members of the Public Service Commission?
The Prime Minister.
So how can it be impartial?
In consultation, the leader of the opposition. Not the word consultation. Yes. What the Prime Minister does is with information to the leader of the opposition.
Were you consulted on
No, I was informed.
So then there you go.
Legislation. Yeah. You see, the Constitution, people talk about constitutional reform. I agree there is need for constitutional reform. But the Constitution makes provision for reasonable men. That's the underlying factor. It makes provision for reasonable men and women. Let me give an example. You think the Constitution ever could forecast that the Prime Minister would appoint a Deputy Speaker on one day and the next day appoint the same person as a minister? What constitutional reason?
So you're saying that okay, so the legislation
but it comes to reasonableness.
It does not account for
unreasonable men or women.
Okay.
Right? So now the Integrity Commission, what we have to do now, when you get money, we have to give it teeth. We have to point people to give it teeth.
Does the Integrity Commission have its own legal counsel?
It doesn't. It doesn't have any, because again, the Minister of Finance must fund it. You see? So what I'm saying to you is that whilst we look into constitutional reform, we have to strengthen the existing laws that exist. And that's coming back to the Public Service Commission. The Prime Minister wrote me and said to me, I'm appointing X and Y and Z Public Service. I wrote it back and he said to me, I do not agree with all of that. He's never come back to me, just appointed him.
So
just like the Integrity Commission.
So what is the redress here?
Nothing. Because the law doesn't have any room for redress in these circumstances. Because again, the law makes provision for reasonable men. So people say all the time, take the government to court, take the government to court. They haven't even read the laws that say take the government to court. The government isn't me. There is no law that says Parliament must meet. So the Parliament doesn't meet. The law presupposes that government allow Parliament to meet regularly.
Can any other parliamentarian other than the leader of government business ask for a meeting of Parliament?
No. It must be done by the
even though there's a private bill or
must come from the speaker must control it.
Okay.
Can
you ask the speaker to
and you
convene?
know the speaker is appointed by you know what happened to the last speaker? You know, so the system so I know it presupposes reasonableness. You understand? And so in the new constitution that we're going to deal, we have to look for all these loopholes. But still for that, there are still going to be places that the constitution would be voluminous.
Can you tell me right now, because we're due for another break, but before we go to break right now, can you say definitively that the St. Lucia Labour Party will commit to passing constitutional reform in the next term in office?
We have committed. We the ones we formed, and again, I'm glad you asked me that because
formed,
you have to go.
let me just say, you formed the Constitutional Reform Committee. They did their work, their consultation.
They came to Parliament.
Yes, they came to Parliament.
I criticized all of it.
And 17 members of Parliament voted to send it to committee.
Yes.
Where we never heard anything about it.
No.
After that,
when we went there, we went into elections. The Prime Minister called me to be on a panel with him. I was there. Because there are some sections of it I didn't agree with. I'll be clear for you. We came to the panel. I was there, the Prime Minister. And he said he would form a committee to deal with it, the next steps.
Right.
You may recall he appointed Kim St.
Correct.
Good. Where's Kim St.
Her term has ended.
And was anybody reappointed?
That I don't know.
No. Then they said, the committee, I appointed 2 members of my members. I appointed Claudius Francis and Curly George. I would nothing from the Prime Minister.
Okay.
So we are committed and we did all the steps. You know, a lot of people say things that are not true and they do not check the background. People just say things because of probably their political, the party affiliation. These things are factual. And I always tell people, anything I say, I want you to fact check me. I want you to go and say, listen to me, Philip J. Pierre, you said so. This is not true. The committee, we appointed 2 members of the committee.
I did see the correspondence,
yes.
so yes.
So you can't blame me, I'm on government.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about healthcare because that is something that I know you are very concerned about. So please don't go anywhere. Viewers, journalist with Janika Simon and Mr. Philip J. Pierre will be right back after these messages. Welcome back. I wish that our breaks were recorded or televised because we've been having some very serious back and forth about that constitutional reform issue. But we need to move on. So let us talk about healthcare. I mean, I think that we have passed the parity point right now where the St. Jude's Hospital reconstruction project, I think both parties now have equal ownership of that project.
In terms of time, yes.
In terms of time frame, so you had the Stevenson King administration presided over the first couple of years of that project. Then the government changed. You had the Labour Party, and then now we have.
So we equally 4 years.
So now you have 4 years of a United Workers Party administration, 4 years of a Labour Party administration. Still no hospital. What went wrong in terms of the management under your party's tenure? So tell me what went wrong in terms of the completion of the project. We had the Labour Party coming out year after year saying that the hospital would be completed. That never happened, and that's something that is hanging around your neck like a millstone right now.
Sure. First of all, both parties, and I'm going to be very nice tonight.
That's very charitable of you.
Both parties would like the hospital to be completed. It's just simple. Both parties. I mean, why would you not want the hospital to be completed? But let me tell you something. The UWP intentions for the St. Jude Hospital when they got back in power were always questionable. Let me tell you why. The UWP put in their manifesto that they would compete in Jude Hospital.
Yes.
That's a manifesto promise. When the UWP got into power, and I want you to forget the listeners, forget their political affiliation, both Labour Party and SLP people and UWP people. The first thing you do when you get to the government is you look at what's there. When I became Minister of Infrastructure, obviously I said to my Pierre, tell me what's there.
Let me stop you there because I asked you about what went wrong
I'm
during
telling you
your administration.
Simple, we didn't have enough money. Simple.
Okay.
We didn't have enough money.
So why
There was never any dedicated stream to build a hospital.
why did the former Minister of Health come out multiple times, year after year, to say that the hospital would be completed this year, knowing that there was issues with
Well, I
funding?
guess in hindsight, we shouldn't have said so. In hindsight, and if we said something that we should not have said, I want to apologize on behalf of the minister if she said so. She was being advised. She said so.
Yes,
On the advisement.
Okay.
And then if she was wrongly advised, I want to apologize on her behalf. Right? So we want to make that clear.
So there was no dedicated funding
There's no dedicated
stream.
funding.
You just could
We
not
just could
get
not
the job
to
done.
do it. There's no
All right.
dedicated funding stream.
Okay.
Good. Now, let me tell you why the UWP.
Now you can continue.
Right, thank you. And I did something. I'm never too big to say that I made a mistake here. A lot of people believe that when they get into positions that all of us make mistakes. We make mistakes and we can say, listen, I made a mistake. That's it. But let's get back to your mistake can have serious repercussions on you. And if your mistake is big enough, you ought to resign. If your mistake is big enough. But let's get back to the hospital. The government intentions on St. Jude were never always tainted. Because when you go into government, you look at what's there. The first thing the government should have done is look at what was there. And what was there was a handover report. They hid that. That was a secret. They kept that as a secret until it had to be leaked. If the government had looked at a handover report, most of the issues we had in St. Jude would not have existed. Because what they would have done, they would have called the engineer, they'd have called the consultant, and they would have a discussion. I know some people say discussions are not necessary. Then they would have a discussion. They would put these people to account in public as to where the hospital is. Why is the hospital not completed? Get the people who are involved, the engineer, the consultant. All that was involved, all that was there in a handover report. That was there. The government hid that report. Now, you have to ask yourself, why did they hide that report? Now, when that report is put in public, if the report is put in the public domain for everybody to see, then you could say to yourself, you see what these guys did? But no, they began to play politics immediately. They began to blame Kenny Anthony, began to blame Alvina Renault, without even telling the public that there was a handover report. Now, I was on the show with Timothy Polio, and I made that point all the time, and they hid it. They thought some people said I spoke about the handover report too much, but that was only what you had to do, because that was what the experts left. So if the government had followed the handover report, then they could have looked at what was there, what was wrong, what was not done properly, etc. But instead of that, one minister became an engineer and architect right away. He said this wasn't good and that wasn't going to be enough windows and things, without telling the public that there is a report from the people who were involved in the construction. And that's where it went wrong, because the intentions were never honorable. What were intentions? I don't know. I carried any mind.
Why?
And you see, if they had looked at the handover reports, the government had an audit. Up now, the audit has not been public. So you find what they wanted to do is to muddy the waters for their own personal reasons. You had a minister, then he took the police and he searched people's homes, all kind of things. And in the handover report, it was said in the handover report where these things were.
So you think that this project has become a victim of politicization?
Yes. And right now, it's got so far. Listen to the things the government said. First of all, the rumor was they would demolish the hospital. Am I right or wrong?
Yes.
Anything I go wrong, tell me.
Tell
me I'm wrong when I go wrong.
There was consideration of
the
that.
building was so bad
Yes.
that they demolished it. Secondly, they would demolish parts of it. Am I right or wrong?
You're correct.
Thirdly, they would build a new wing inside of it.
This is now the
third one,
operating theory.
They would be, yes.
That there's a new wing going up
inside, in the same site.
On the site, yes.
Then fourthly, they would demolish parts. Now, what was that? We said to the government, if you believe that there is corruption, if any minister in the Labour Party government was involved in corruption, investigate and let the full force of the law fall on them.
Well, there was supposed to have been, or there is supposed to be, an ongoing investigation that was announced by this administration. We have not heard anything as yet coming out of that, but I know that they had announced they were looking into it, and I think the Minister for Economic Development had said some months ago that they were very, very close to...
So. And he even said that he would call the Director of Public Prosecution.
Correct, yes. No, yes.
People seem to forget these things, deliberately. Is selective memory loss. He said he would call the Director of Public Prosecution. He accused all kinds of things. You understand? But all we're saying is bring somebody to justice, but complete the hospital. The government has, from the Republic of Taiwan, $10 million US. If the government's intentions were not tainted, architects said to them, there is a part of the hospital. Okay, let us suppose the building isn't good. You think anything could be worse than where they are?
Well, that's the question that the public is asking.
Second, architects said to them, you can take the entire East Wing, use the entire East Wing, and it will be better than George Odlum Stadium. All we are saying to the government, take the people out of the George Odlum Stadium. That's all we saying to them. And then the government didn't even, they rubbished that. They rubbished it. In fact, the Prime Minister said that the guy who said so because he lost government contracts. That's why he said so. And that is the mindset. That's the mindset, you understand? So you have the wing. People are saying, you can take the entire George Odlum Stadium and put it in one part of the hospital. The government has refused.
So, I mean, what do we do, or as a nation, what do you do as a party if you come back into office in the next election and the St. Jude's Hospital is still unfinished?
We are going to move the people from the George Odlum Stadium by taking the advice of experts and move them to the East Wing of the hospital. That's our first move.
Do you believe that, given the hospital is, given that same East Wing is unfinished, it is currently open to the elements, it would have,
deteriorated further.
It would have deteriorated further.
And that is the problem we have.
What do you think that it would then be suitable to complete and move people in?
And that is why we are demonstrating again, saying the government, take the people out of the George Odlum Stadium.
In terms of the healthcare situation on a whole, so we're not just focusing on St. Jude's. Let's look at the other major incomplete or unfinished project, which is the Owen King EU Hospital. We seem now to have settled on a privatized model for that hospital.
Are you sure?
I cannot be sure because we have been told by this administration that discussions and considerations are still open. However, we have not heard of any other. The Prime Minister has said that the other proposals that they received from entities were for management contracts, and that he was minded to do a joint venture agreement, and that the Health City individuals were the only proposal that had proposed a joint venture. So a joint venture, in my understanding, is a joint ownership of the project or facility. So the administration or the government of St. Lucia would have some level of ownership, shareholding, Okay, so I'm being told that we need to take a break now. But when we come back, we need to talk about Owen King EU Hospital, and we also need to talk about the distributed healthcare system, so our network of clinics and health centers and polyclinics. Please don't go anywhere. I would love to keep talking, but we have a couple of messages to get to, and then journalists will be right back. Okay, so there's so many things happening tonight that we were just touching base and checking on your other event that I know that I'm keeping you from. So unfortunately, it seems to be going well. Mr. Alva Baptiste is just giving some closing remarks, so it seems that you will miss it. You'll have to, like me, watch the recording tomorrow morning. But I really wanted you to speak on the Owen King EU Hospital, as well as the general state of our healthcare system, because I mean, I know that this is of grave concern to many St. Lucians out there. Sure. So, OK, EU Hospital, the Labour Party is not in favor of a private model for this hospital.
No, because private means profit. Profit means higher prices, period. That's straight.
Right. So you think that a joint venture, partnership, a public-private partnership for healthcare is not...
Let me explain something. Let me tell you something. Yeah. You know, as we speak, St. Lucia government owes Martinique Hospital authorities a lot of money.
You mentioned that in your press conference yesterday.
Right. Why can't the government speak to the Martinican authorities and tell them, let's work together on OKU? Let's suppose they want to go that way.
You mean in terms of a PPP
anything,
or something like that?
In terms of not... Well, the PPP is something I don't think we should not be speaking about. The government turned down the PPP for the airport, you know.
Well, yes.
Yeah, you know that, didn't
yes.
Now, you understand?
Yes.
But now, I'm talking about some strategic alliances. You see? Now, why is the government going to Cayman? You know what it takes? Air travel from Cayman to St. Lucia?
I've never been to the Cayman Islands.
You have to go to Miami.
Okay.
And Martinique is next door. Why hasn't the government spoken to the authorities and to medical people in Martinique? The Cubans have been helping us for years with our health care. Why haven't the government tried to, as it's forged some alliance, forge a further alliance with these people? Why the Cayman Islands? Why Help City? That's the question. Why haven't we looked at these countries? Question number one. Question number two. The government found a commissioning plan. You know, we've never accused the United Democrats Party of not opening the OKU. And their response, oh, you all didn't finish in June. You all didn't finish in June. That's all they say. You all didn't finish in June. We never said, you all didn't finish OKU. We could say that too. Because when they came in the government, they found AQU going. We could have said so. Why you all didn't finish OKU? We never said so. Because we understand the ramifications and the difficulties in commissioning a hospital. So we never blame them for not finishing the OKU, although they were the ones who made the OKU smaller by cutting off a finger.
I don't mean the pun there, but okay. Do we have the money in our economy to operate? And that's
do we have the money? And that's a trick question. Do we have the money in our economy to pay a man $32 million to draw renderings of sports facilities when you can't even maintain what is there? For the guys to play football in the Marshall grounds at nights, lights that we put in the government, they have to pay about $250 to pay. The guys can't pay. They have to come to me. So you can't even maintain. You see, these things, and I'm glad, and it's a pity we don't have the time. You can find the money to pay a guy to draw renderings. All right? Now, we can't maintain the Darren Sammy Stadium. We don't have no money to maintain it. The George Odom Stadium is a hospital. There are plans to build a swimming facility up north. We can't do it. Right? But we can find money to pay a guy $42 million of dreams.
So you think it's a matter
Of
of priorities?
priorities, of prioritizing.
But given that, okay, a consultant plan or of a vision plan or something is a one-off payment to somebody, whereas something like a hospital is a yearly operating cost. And if you run it as a public hospital, this is now an additional every year addition to your budget. Can we afford? And I'm not talking about in contrast to anything else, but just looking at our national budget, the fact that we have to look at Owen King EU, we have to look at St. Jude's, we have to look at Soufre, we have to look at all the other clinics and polyclinics and health centers around the island. Can we really afford to run Owen King EU Hospital year after year as a public hospital?
With proper planning, we can.
Okay.
We can. Because, and that's where health financing comes in. And, I repeat these things all the time because I feel passionate about it. Because of the work that had been done already. There was a commissioning plan for the hospital. And you see, a while ago you said to me, politicians said, we'll open St. Jude tomorrow. I mean, it never happened. So you held me to task for that, right? Now, in these plans, they weren't done by politicians, They were done by health experts. The people who helped us build the hospital were the ones who were helping us in the commissioning plan. You understand? Now, in the health financing plan, it was done by health economists from the European Union. They gave us the funds to do it. The government has put all that aside, Janika.
How, and I'm glad you mentioned the European Union. What do you think are the ramifications to our international donors? Should we move away from the plans that they financed, move away from the public hospital that they gave us, and move to a private venture? Do we have any legal ramifications coming of that? Do we have any bilateral or multilateral ramifications coming from that? Are you concerned that we might have issues with aid or funding for other projects, other future projects? I mean, what are your opinions on that?
I'm concerned as to how we use these gifts. We have an abattoir. The abattoir, which the Prime Minister called a slaughterhouse. The abattoir was built by the Taiwanese on the request of the United Workers' Party government. Okay, on their request. We built the abattoir. When he came into power, we amended it and we continued. But we continued. And then people say, oh, all governments stop projects started by others. That's not true. We continued the abattoir. We didn't say the UWP, oh, you all didn't finish it. Yeah, we continued it. We didn't have time to commission it. This government has the abattoir closed. A gift from the Taiwanese government. So you want to close it? We want to close it. I don't know if they're going to break it down or they're going to use it for alternative use for horses. Now, I'm going quickly to the EU. The EU didn't give us a hospital to give another person for profit. I don't know the ramification. I do not know the ramification. I heard some people say, oh, they spoke about, some European ambassadors spoke about a PPP, right? The European ambassadors got a PPP, public-private partnership. We don't even know what he was thinking of. We don't know whether they're speaking about connections with a European firm or connections with a firm in Martinique or hospital in Martinique. We don't know. But we do not know. We need information. What is happening now is the government is telling us several things. The Prime Minister said that we can't maintain a hospital, so we're going to use it as a tertiary hospital for tourism. For what do you call it? Medical tourism.
Medical tourism.
So let's see. Let's be facetious and see all the beds are filled with tourists. Welcome to locals.
He mentioned that the he mentioned that the Victoria Hospital would continue.
So you're going to maintain two hospitals now.
In a reduced capacity somehow.
It costs you $60 million, you see, to run the OKU hospital. You want to run it for medical tourism, right? Now, the people. So who will invest the $60 million? Now, who invested?
The private partners?
Exactly. Now, he'll give you the $60 million and tell you, I love you, bye-bye. You don't expect
There's obviously a profit
It's got
motive.
to be a profit motive. And we
Do you believe that the national insurance scheme with the national health insurance system, which the Prime Minister proposed, could cover the cost
the
of...
Prime Minister hasn't proposed anything. He said something. But no difference in a man speaking and a man proposing, you know.
Well, the white paper for that is supposed to come out next month.
Suppose, here's what we did. We said that healthcare is so important. We came to the Parliament and we asked for a committee between the opposition and the government on health. Because we know that health is difficult to finance. We were in government. We know the problems with healthcare. If the great United States had so much issues with a healthcare bill, what is St. Lucia? But what we're saying is that the government does not have all the answers. The government should bring the medical and dental association to the table. They are those on the front line. The government should bring the nurses on the table. The government should bring the opposition on the table. The government should bring the insurance companies on the table. The government should bring everybody on the table and let us discuss it. What is happening is, both in the case of St. Jude, is political upmanship. The government's philosophy is to crush the opposition, all by whatever means necessary, and they're losing sight. They are so blinded by wanting to damage the opposition that they're losing sight of what should happen. And at that time is going. So in terms of health, the government is nowhere because they have not discussed it with anybody, discussed it among themselves. So we're saying to ourselves, if you want to have a joint venture and you want to have the hospital to be a place for medical tourism, where will locals go? But you said you just couldn't maintain it. You said you don't have money to maintain it. So you're going to maintain both Victoria Hospital and the OKU?
On that note, Mr. Pierre,
don't you find that a legitimate question?
No, it is definitely a legitimate question, I will tell you that reporters,
confusing.
the press, journalists have been asking questions, and the plans, the policies seem to be shifting. That's my perspective as somebody who sits at press briefings and listens.
Because a joint venture must have profit.
Yeah.
And profit means that the expenses must be less than the income, period.
What I want to do, because we're so pressed for time, is I want to open the lines right now. So if we could get the number up on the screen, I'm going to allow just a couple calls while we speak about Sundays. We've looked at tourism, we've looked at healthcare. You know, what is your message on Sunday going to be? Is it just a demonstration of dissatisfaction? No. What is the message?
Sunday, we wanted the demonstration is organized.
Of course, the lines are going crazy.
But
so
it's not a Labour Party demonstration.
Right, it's not a Labour Party demonstration.
It's a demonstration for a national demonstration to show our disgust and our concerns about primarily healthcare and other things.
Okay, let's take a call. Good evening, caller. Please make it fast.
Yeah, good evening. I'm happy to have my leader of the opposition, Mr. Philip J. Pierre, with you, and thank you for the night. Mr. Pierre?
Yes, sir.
I've listened to you. You're very articulate. You made your points well, and I'm very happy to see that you are standing up for the people of St. Lucia, and more importantly, the small man. That's what's important. To your guest, I want to say to her, the question she's asking...
Wait.
She's not the guest.
I'm the host of the show. Mr. Pierre is the guest.
Yes. All right. To your host. She's asking some questions, and then you're responding to her.
Yes.
But Mr. Pierre, what you fail, and this is where I have a slight disagreement with you, what you fail to do, these people in authority, they are nothing more than a bunch of crooks.
Oh, no.
It is clear. They are liars, and it has been proven to the people of St. Lucia. It's as simple like you're trying to be nice and diplomatic. Mr. Pierre,
yes,
you've
sir.
got to call it by its name. They are nothing more but a bunch of liars, and they have been lying to the people of St. Lucia. It's as simple like drinking a cup of coffee. I know you try to be diplomatic, you are the leader of the opposition, but the time has come for you to call a spade and you take it from there. Have a nice,
Thank you,
nice
caller.
night.
Thank you.
You and your and the journalist.
Thank you very
you
much.
for
Thank
your
you.
contribution, caller.
So it's a.
We have to go directly to the lines. Hold on. Yes, good evening. Hi, good evening.
Hello, good night.
Go ahead, please. Make it quick if you can.
Right, Mr. Pierre.
Yes, good night, sir.
Well, I'm happy to see your program there. I'm happy to see the two of you all going on. I'm very happy. But we now, I was wondering why the Labour Party is not taking any action or not doing anything to put Sept back on foot. And what I'm telling you is, I'm very glad you all are having a matter. I never participated in such a thing, but I must do it this time because Sept is now going head downward. Okay, so we have to do something. I'm very happy. But the most important thing I want to say, St. Lucia found itself where it is through Richard, Frederick, and the journalists, and those journalists in St. Lucia. They are the ones who cause the less knowledge of the people, less knowledge of the people, to put this government that was in power there, the Labour Party, to put the Labour Party down. Richard Frederick is the main one, plus all the journalists around. Some of them, I don't want to say all, sorry, some of them. Okay.
Caller, let me stop you there.
Now,
Richard Frederick and journalists are not the majority of the voting public, okay?
But they are the ones who caused that country to be in that situation it is there. St. Lucia did not need a change of government at the beginning, okay? This government, Labour Party, was keeping the country in a good state and they was on good footing, okay? So they have the responsibility right now. Richard Frederick and some of the journalists, so they have the responsibility when they back down to see that they put this country back where it was. And we are standing, I'm not supporting the Baptist, but I'm supporting this time. But they are the ones who caused us to be in that situation we are right now. You want to tell me the Prime Minister, you want to demolish some buildings. You said you want to use that place for a certain purpose, not for that same purpose. Why don't you go and build those buildings back somewhere where you know you will look at them? Why don't you go and build them to replace everybody and everything in those new buildings and then come and demolish? You want to demolish both the buildings and bomb the people that are working in them. That Prime Minister is the only thing he has in his mind is to demolish St. Lucia and St. Lucian. So if we don't put our foot down without killing, without injuring anybody, although nothing can happen without bloodshed, even in the time of God himself, we have to see the blood for him when he pass over you when I see the blood. So we know blood is something that brings victory, but we're not asking for that.
Not at all, not at all. Thank you.
Not at all.
Thank you for your contribution.
Do everything in decency and in order, and let us put our country back where it was, and put that Prime somewhere else to do some other job.
Thank you for your contribution. Are you aware, sir, that there is currently demolition work going on at Her Majesty's prisons?
I heard people say that.
Okay.
I've not been there to see.
Oh well, it's happening. It's actually been happening since
in a demolition
since
stage.
last week. I've been trying to find out more information about that, but I just wanted to know if you had any idea about that.
Again, that you're supposed to have public notices because when you demolition, there is dust. So and there are schools nearby. Again, and people say we're against progress. If you are demolishing substantial buildings like the prison, you ought to have public notices. Are there notices there?
I have not seen any notices.
I didn't know it. You ought to have notices.
There's no signage.
There's no signage. You're supposed to tell people you're going to be doing what. There's dust. There are things in the atmosphere. This is the thing that happens for government. This is madness. Who gave permission? You're supposed to give public notice that you're going to begin demolition of these buildings at a particular date and time. But who is doing that?
I cannot confirm.
What are they doing it for?
I do not know.
I'm leaving your position,
Yeah. Right. Good evening, caller. Good evening, caller.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, quickly, please.
Good evening, Mr. Pierre.
Hi, good evening.
Okay. There's a recent calypso in the recent carnival season. A young guy sang a song, Tie Mete. I don't know how strong your Creole is, but basically saying, La Ville me sue a te.
Tie Chasne ek mete Pierre. I remember it. I like that calypso actually. It's a good pun on words. I like it.
Right. But to me, when I see it, to me, the citizenry we getting shafted.
Why? I'm not a prime minister, you know.
No, but I mean,
I've
you're
never
just-
been.
No, but I mean, you were part of the last administration.
Yes, I was.
And unless you come with something new, Mr. Pierre, there's nothing to look forward to. You
Oh, you've heard nothing new tonight, caller?
Not nothing new. I'm saying nothing. What change in your modus operandi? Because
What was wrong? All right, caller, I agree.
you understand? I'm saying we have to come. I mean, our backs are against the wall, really and truly. I mean, we have a lot of intelligent people saying they're not voting anymore. They're disgruntled. They're disappointed. They feel betrayed by both sets.
Why? But we're not in government, caller.
But you were.
Caller,
You
that's
were.
an excuse. Listen to me. I think that's a convenient excuse.
No,
that-
no, Mr. Pierre. No, Mr. Pierre. Because you talk, hear me out. You talk about reselling our property.
I never said so. No, I didn't say so. I didn't
No,
say so.
so earlier you alluded to.
Alluded, okay.
Right, sorry. Right. But we had Grindberg.
Yes. And the government has been in power for 2.5 years, and we've told them if anything went wrong, if Grindberg, bring us to justice. Why are you saying that all the time? You've said, I mean, the government is in power, you know. The government was in power for 5. You are pretending as if the government is not in power. The government is in power now. They have all the files.
No,
They have
that's what I'm saying. It's the politicians. It's them against us.
I
The
think
politicians
what the
against
caller is
Joe
trying to
I'm
suggest.
disappointed. There's very little to look forward to. I was gung-ho to go and demonstrate to protest. But, I mean, then, I don't know, the future looks bleak. I mean, we were disappointed. That's why we did not vote you all in power the last time. But then, I don't know. I mean, we have to come, we have to reorganize, wheel and come again. But, I mean, I don't know, we really in a bad way. Now, before I leave, on the matter of the hospital, I've heard the Labour Party criticize the current administration for putting a halt on work to the St. Jude's. And to a certain extent, I support them.
For
Because-
halting the St. Jude's project?
Of course, because apparently there was no accountability. That was good money flowing
Caller,
after
caller
bad.
again, caller. You're not
No,
listening.
we have to pause.
Caller,
We
you're
have
not
to pause.
listening. Caller, I must stop you because you're not listening.
I'm not
You-
talking about
no,
tonight,
you're not
only, Mr.
listening. What I'm
Pierre.
saying to you, there was a report, caller. And then have you you're just saying
No, I
things.
support you in that regard. The report.
But caller, can I just say to you that year after year, financial audits are done on companies, financial audits are done on organizations without halting the operation of the company or the organization. So you can look for accountability without stopping work on a project.
Jenica,
Yes,
did you see the Untold Stories report on that St. Jude's Hospital?
I did.
And you would not agree that a lot of good money was going down the drain,
But
no accountability.
Then bring them to justice,
what
caller.
I'm telling you is that you can account for monies wasted, you can account for monies misappropriated
Bring them to justice.
without stopping work on a national health project.
Bring them to justice.
It is possible to do so, and that's my rebuttal to you. That you can continue an audit and to say, well, this money was wasted and this person is responsible while continuing the work. There's no need to stop it on those grounds.
And bring the people who stole the money to justice.
Okay, now I do agree with Mr. Pierre then. It's about time. What do we do to get
Well, exactly,
Minister of
because
Economic Affairs to make the report public?
Well, exactly. You should call, and that's what
Well,
I'm
that
saying to you.
you need. I think you need to support the press who asks
We had an
for
economic
this.
audit. Then we said we're going to do a technical audit.
We need
$1
to
million
see.
for an audit.
We need to see these audits.
Direct tender.
We
I mean, why are
need
we
to
going
see
into
these
Lucia at all?
audits. We need to see these audits, and I think that we need to ask the current administration to make these reports public,
And call her.
so that the public and the
Yes.
press can
Yes, Mr.
discuss
Pierre.
this.
You seem to be somebody who's following current affairs. I made the handover report a document of the House. You should read it. And I know you sound very intelligent. You sound very frustrated.
I'm patriotic. I love my
you should
country.
read what's there. The handover. These things. I made it. The government kept it a secret. I made a document of the House. The Speaker dictated, made a document of the House. You should read it and when you read it, you will see what's there. Why did the government fire the consultant and the engineer without calling them to account in public?
Right.
Exactly. So, you know, so when you say all of us are the same, you must think
no,
of what you're saying. Because if what should happen is that the government should call the engineer and the accountant, call them to parliament, have a joint parliamentary committee on the hospital, call them and let them make them account. Mr. Engineer, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Mr. Consultant, let the public hear. The Constitution makes provision for that. But you can't just stay in your office, go there. Somebody went and they stretched their two arms together and they said the door was too small, but based on their two arms stretch. We don't. So what are you doing? We just speculate and we just mud in the water.
But in the interest of time, I just want to end, caller, because I have to let you go, caller. But in the interest of time, I just want to say that you can do all of this while the work on the hospital continues.
But one final point.
Yes.
That Lockerbie issue and that consultancy, how are we? Where do we go? How do we?
I thought you said a while ago that I would do the same. I'll never do that.
No, I'm objecting.
Caller, I'm so sorry. I have to let you go. I do apologize. You did make some great contributions.
All the best.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. Okay, so we are completely out of time right now. Can we squeeze in one more? Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, you're talking against time right now. Go ahead, please.
A quick question. Good night to everyone.
Good
quick
night.
Question. Mr. Pierre, what else can we do to stop this government? Because I'm seeing a lot of marches taking place that have no effect.
Caller, it's not right to say there's no effect, caller. You've listened to the Arab Spring recently, what happened in Egypt, and it's marches, you know. Caller, we live in a democratic country. Now, they have two ways of changing the government in a democratic country. You do it for elections, or you do it for violence and a coup d'etat. Right? Now, the Senusian Labour Party will not get involved in a coup d'etat, nor will the Senusian Labour Party sanction any violence. What we have to do is we have to continuously show to the government that we are dissatisfied. And one of the ways the democratic system allows us to do it is by demonstrating, by taking people to the streets. That's how the government in Egypt changed. That's how the government in this country changed. What we say is that we have to show the government by our numbers that we are dissatisfied with what they're doing.
And how long do you think that will take?
It will take as long as the people want it to take. I'll tell you something.
Okay, my question, is there anything faster than that? Like legally some kind of injunction or something that will stop them in the meantime?
Look, caller, you can't have any, you know, the courts are clear on that. I'm not a lawyer, but the courts are clear on when the governments get elected, there are certain things that the courts will not stop them from doing. Because you see, we live in a democratic system.
Now, there are injunctions that you can ask for. You can ask the court to issue an injunction on a particular project, on a particular action, but not on the government itself.
Caller, I understand your frustration. What I want you to do is you and your family come in numbers. I'm sure if we put 30,000 people on the road on Sunday, the government will have to.
We've been demonstrating for about almost 2 years now.
No, caller. We must understand, but we must be persistent. Martin Luther King demonstrated.
Can we just look at the areas where we can place injunctions? Then at least that would save maybe.
We are, caller. We are. Look, I can assure you, we are.
That's reassuring.
We are. Yes, we are.
Thank you very much for your contribution, caller.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. I mean, the lines are still going crazy, but we are out of time. We have to stop.
After the demonstration,
we have to stop somewhere. But I would really love to have you back so we can continue the conversation, because I believe that we touched on a number of important topics, and there are several more to discuss. What I will do, because the caller before the last made me realize that maybe some people still have not seen the handover report. So what I'm going to do is, I have it somewhere. I'm going to get that, and I'm going to publish it on my Facebook page so that people can read it. And I mean, it is
and
not...
also there are the health financing options.
The health financing options. I will also...
And the commission report for the hospital.
I will put out the documents that I have so that people can have access to it.
Thank you.
But I must say that just on a matter of logic and reasoning, it is fine to do audits. it is fine to do investigations, but these things can be done without work stoppages. And I think that it's important for people to understand that. Mr. Pierre, I want to thank you very much for your time this evening, for joining me, for engaging in this discussion with me. I hope that we can do it again. St. Lucia, you know, he didn't have to encourage you any more than he's already been doing and his colleagues have already been doing. You know that there will be a public demonstration on Sunday the 9th. Choice TV will be there to cover it live, so if you cannot make it, then you can watch it. I know that Mr. Pierre would prefer if you were down there on Sunday, but until Sunday and next week, be good, stay safe, and good night, St. Lucia.